exceptional rainy season this year with wind. And when you bring your crops indoor, that's not going to be a problem. There is a lot of capital to bring it indoor, but you're also going to have more control over your temperature, your humidity, your CO2. You control the nutrients that you're giving your plants. You're controlling the EC and the pH of those nutrients, which is just ideal. You can collect data through using sensors, and you can utilize that data to make a better grow in the future. We now have sensors that take the data in and devices that can control the actual environment, like turning your lights off and on, setting your humidifiers where they need to be, controlling your AC and your heating unit. And then also with the drip irrigation, we're utilizing cameras now in the grow. So when you're not there, you can still see what's going on. So as far as growing and, you know, having consistency, even if you're a small grower and you're trying to make it a larger grow, watching that data and taking in that data and being able to utilize it to make proper predictions for your future grow is what's beneficial, I think, for a successful grow right now. But that's for indoor. So.
Yeah, I think, Suzie, though, you're right. What you measure is what you improve. And so it doesn't matter whether you're indoors or outdoors. You need to be tracking a lot of things, a lot of variables in order to really optimize and improve as you go. Otherwise, you're just doing the same old thing. Technology is a blessing and a curse, right? And so every time you implement a new piece of technology, you require new specialized training for that, and usually a new person to repair that. So just to give you an example of why I grow certain ways versus other ways, in the old school, growers bragged based on how little they worked. If you were like, I only have to put in 4 hours a week and I'm pulling off quads, like that was a good thing. And now people are working their asses off. So let's be clear, there has been a benefit to the increased work ethic. But when you start to look at some of the things that the old guys did, there was reasons that they did it. For instance, if you are running an aeroponics system and a pump goes down, it could be 4 hours and your whole crop could be dead, right? If you're running an a hydroponic system, you know, you might get away with a day. And if you're in a deep water culture system, you might get away with 2 days, 3 days before the plants are looking pretty bad. But if you're in soil, I mean, as long as your lights are still on, you could probably get away with a week if you had a good watering. And it depends on, you know, your porosity and all those sorts of things. But there are every time you put in one of those pumps, you know, in a commercial grow, typically you're going to put in a sensor behind that pump to make sure that the pump's running, and either one of those things could go and need to be repaired or replaced as well. And so, you know, I love technology. I think the more lights and cameras and sensors and optimization of wavelengths, the more cool stuff you can do. Today, you know, as I said, technology is 100% a blessing and a curse. It both traps you and frees you at the same time. And so you need to be able to look at it in that sort of yin yang perspective as what are the negative consequences of implementing this technology as well. And we've seen many cases where, you know, like a grow just implemented new fans on the walls because they went to a trade show and saw that big ass fans had some big ass fans, and then they put those fans in and it messes with everything. They can no longer keep temperature control of anything because it wasn't dialed into the system properly. And so I just want to make sure that people are weighing those pros and cons as you implement certain sensors and things like that, because what you measure is what you improve. But if you're collecting bad data and things are breaking all the time, then it's, you know, it didn't really help you.
More knowledge for the growers. That's all Jamaica needs right now. More knowledge for the growers. Once we get that knowledge out there and the growers start to improve their grows, you're gonna start seeing, like I always tell people that come into the cannabis industry, everything starts at the farm. Everything starts at the farm. If you want to have a beautiful business, concentrate on your farm. Your farm will it will show you what direction to go in, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Any operation that I go into, that initial tour is actually one of the most important things, not to see necessarily the plants, but for me, I can tell a successful business by the attitude of the employees. If they love being there and they love their job and they love their boss, the companies that had that are sticking around in the Canadian scene, at least. And I believe that that is true in any business, really.
All over.
Yeah, so we're seeing an exodus of people who did not love this plant, did not love their employees, did not love anything about this, and maybe some of the money is going with them. But I always tell people too, like, do you remember the search engine that you were using in 1996? No, nobody remembers that. But Google and Yahoo and Amazon, all those weren't even a thing then. And so it's the second wave of people that actually slugged it out in their basements and loved every minute of it that are going to be the Jeff Bezoses of cannabis. It's no one's going to remember, I'm not even going to mention names, but those guys that did a bunch of money stuff. Nobody cares.
You don't want to say no names.
No, don't.
Well, I think
So,
the plan
listen.
cares less about money.
You want me to say it for you? Oh,
No, Jay, let
man.
Rastafari go.
Look, they're all in the psychedelic space telling lies now too, so.
So we talk about the passion, and I think when you talk about the love of the plant, we talk about the passion, being passionate about this plant, being passionate to grow this plant, being passionate about the business, being passionate about your employees, being passionate about everything that you do around this plant. That is the first thing. If you don't have this passion, a connoisseur will have this passion. Even if this person can grow, if somebody who loves the plant, loves what comes from the plant, should go grow room, you will see the passion in these persons because of what they get. They love what they see. They love everything of this plant, and that is the first take. If you're gonna go into the cannabis business, that is what we should practice. The passion. How do we create passion for this plant? How do we put ourselves to be able to speak to the plant? How do we get connected to the plant? And these are some of the ancient understanding that we have to offer. I mean, as far as getting the plant to do what you want it to do. Now, in going outside or in these closed areas, there's so much difference. I mean, it's great and appreciate to think of going inside, but we have now something which the world wants. I mean, Jamaica within itself is a brand, and the sun-grown plants, the sun-grown cannabis is something different. It is a brand. And while Andre would say, understand how to grow, understand, knowing what to do, knowing the different time to apply the different nutrients, knowing how to use the nutrients and protect your plants. So these are the things that, I mean, can be positive. And we can go and tell most of these people in topics to do an indoor grow. We have to find different ways of doing this outdoor grow that can achieve the same or even something close to what will happen indoor. So you can put a huge together and you can lose half of it, but chances are you get some. But this what you get might be compromised, I mean, for the market. So outside, there's benefits, and there's also problems. But when you know your plants, know how to deal with the grow, know how to do with your environment, this can work for you. I mean, I've seen it worked for me, worked for other persons, doing it organically, or following your agricultural practices, following your standards. It will work. Just understand what you're doing and understand the plant, understand your nutrients and how to use them.
Everyone, we're right at 12 o'clock, which is the time we'd said we'd cut off. But if you're all agreeable, I mean, our numbers have held very steady. They haven't fluctuated to go down. So how about if are you all comfortable to extend by 15 more minutes? And we could see if we can capture a couple more topics. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Ras, Biah, I'm gonna jump on. I really want us to, because we got a lot of questions about the use of nutrients. So I do want to tackle that, but I do want to say one thing about what you said, which I completely subscribe to, and it's what I've seen. I was first told when I got into this industry, and at the time I laughed. You know, they said the plant has an energy, and if you don't understand that the plant has an energy, you're not going to succeed. And the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. That sounds some woo-hoo stuff, right? But the word I come back to in this industry that I think governs everything, right, is authenticity. And I think that if you're authentic about what you're trying to do, it takes that passion and it channels it into productive outcomes. And the people who are authentic about what they're trying to do in any area that's connected to this industry, I believe ultimately will find success. The ones who are not authentic, I don't care what they try to put on top of it, the branding, the labeling, the thising, the thatting, it's not going to work out. And I've just come to appreciate, you know, again, coming from a basis, and this may not be relevant to most of the people on this panel, so forgive my indulgence, but I just want to share that part of it, because when I first heard, I didn't understand what people meant about the energy of the plant. And the plant has it's its own being. And I've come to appreciate, respect, and seen that bear out. So Biah, I have tremendous, you know, respect and appreciation for understanding, you know, the sort of cultural heritage of the plant, particularly here in Jamaica. But I also have that other perspective that says, how do we take this and from a Caribbean perspective, translate this, particularly a Caribbean perspective, but even other economies that have suffered over time, how do we take this and translate it into something that's meaningful? And I think that big differentiator for even those people who have big checkbooks and want to jump in is you have to understand that you have to be authentic in doing this, or no matter how much money you have, and we've seen this with some of the largest entities in this industry, particularly around cultivation, there has not been a sum of money they have been able to throw at cultivation to produce a scalable output, right? It doesn't work. We've seen that. It does not work. There's something more to it. And that piece is authenticity. So I want to jump on and talk about nutrients. Forgive my little sort of jump on.
No, but what you were saying right there was,
speak.
I just wanted to chime into that. Just like how you come to love and appreciate the plant and see its potential and see what it can do for everybody. Like Bob Marley said, it's the healer of nations, right? It can do something for everybody. I didn't start with the appreciation for the plant like I have now. I was a smoker. I used to farm. I started farming vegetables because I'm a chef. I wanted to grow food. I didn't grow weed. It's not until I went to Amsterdam and seen how many varieties and see how people can survive off just dealing with weed alone. Like a person can sell seeds, he can sell cuttings. I was in Amsterdam just seeing these things, and I'm like, what else do you do? And anybody that you deal with weed and love it, ask them what they do. They tell you, I deal with weed. They have no other job. Like you know, other people have 3 or 4 different jobs. Like if you deal with cannabis, you're just one job. You know what I mean? So the love, it will grow. It's always gonna grow, especially if you smoke too and you're in the industry. Oh my God, your passion goes
All right.
good.
I'm super mindful of the time, Andre. Thank you for that. So can we talk about nutrients a little bit? Let's talk about, you know, some pros, some cons, some considerations to go into this. I know there's a lot of discussion these days around the use of organic. Would love your comments on that to share with our attendees.
Well, we have learned to especially after, you know, going through that conventional growing. I mean, using fertilizers that we didn't even want to use. Now we are seeing a different connection to the plant, and it's supposed to be the first thing. How do you connect to that? So people might be coming with a lot of money and resources, but the first thing, connect yourself to the plant. Now, understanding the plant and how this plant works. No, I always try to look for stuff that will work for that. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. The people that sells the nutrients and all that, we create our own nutrients, and we try to do it with stuff that is around us. Now we're trying to do a potassium nutrient. We look for the banana and you know, our bananas are, so We extract these nutrients from the things that we find around. We might be perfect in terms of how things are done, but it works. Now, the defense of the plant, and we've looked deeply to how these plants can be defended. The plants can defend themselves. We have learned that through how you feed the plant. If you get this plant bricks of over 12%, the plant will heal itself. If you get this plant to consume enough calcium to make the pectins rigid, that the spores, the spores of say fungus wants to sporulate inside the plant, it makes it difficult. So the nutrients can be manipulated to protect the plant, to give you that perfect plant. It's a wonder. I'll be saying this, and it's very easily, but it's really not easy. It's years of making mistakes, of trials, of not getting it, of no understanding, of relating with plants. And this is how you stand. You might be coming in different genetics. Different genetics relate to different ways of feeding. You have to set up the feeding regime for different genetics. And when you feed, you will find out you have 3 or 4 or 5 genetics out in the field, and you try to use one feeding regime. You might find that a certain genetics don't want to accept this type of feeding. You have to change it. So understanding the whole aspect of how you use these nutrients and what they do is more than just seeing the plant, loving the plant, trying to grow this plant, and trying to take a whole lot of money from this plant.
You know, I think at the end of the day, when it comes to nutrients, you have to figure out what's right for your grow and for your product. You know, I have an organic regenerative approach to my cultivation here in Jamaica because that's the path we wanted to go with it. At the beginning, it's a lot of hard work. It's labor intensive. You need to get materials, but it is a little more sustainable long term. I'm not against the use of salts. Some people really like to use them. As long as they're used properly, as long as your plant is flushed at the end, I really don't think there's a one size fits all for it. But if you're going to use salts, know what you're using, know how to try to flush them out of the soil. If you're going to go with an organic approach, understand how you have to set yourself up. Something I wanted to say earlier, but I missed the opportunity when we were talking about soils. Soil test. Soil test before your plant goes in, soil test after, and continuously do it. If you don't know what's in the soil that you're growing in, whether it's an organic program or a salt-based program, if you don't know what's already in the soil, you don't know how to feed your plant. You don't know what your plant needs. And if you soil test at the start and at the end, you get to find what your consumption rates by your plant were. So at the end, it's that, again, that data. But find out what works in your operation and what you as a person or as a company are trying to appeal to.
You are what they eat, and I think it's the same for cannabis. What you put in is going to affect what you get out of it. And, you know, not to get all crazy spiritual again, but I think if you're buying chemical salts mined from a mine in China or someplace where the workers were not necessarily treated so good and the purity was not necessarily guaranteed, and you're throwing it on your plants, I don't think that's going to turn out the same as if you do something like coal, where you're building your own soil using regenerative. I mean, to be honest, almost every country I go to does not have a compost program. And so I would love to see cultivators, commercial cultivators, set up a compost program locally. Buy those green bins that we have all over Canada, give them to the locals. Yeah, you'll probably have to chain them down, but go around with a truck and pick them all the compost, and start your own program and start building and enriching your own soils. And that is probably the cheapest and best thing you can do for the community and everyone around. It makes your cannabis Jamaican. It makes it regenerative. It makes it all the things that people talk about when we talk about changing the planet and being sustainable, this is this type of stuff we have to consider is where are your inputs coming from? And if you have to wait 6 weeks at the dock to get your fertilizer unlocked, like that could be a problem on a commercial scale. So, you know, we've already seen in St. Vincent, it's very difficult to get things shipped in. And we're very beneficial there because it's some of the most beautiful soil I've ever grown in. So as long as we can maintain the soil health and not just deplete it and strip it bare, I think we'll have a very successful program there for years to come.
I'd like to talk about soil a little bit. I think that it's really important that it's just a consistency, regardless of what you choose to use. Maintaining consistency in your nutrients is ideal. Watch your plants' reaction. They're going to tell you what is important, what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. You will see it in your plant if you just watch your plants. But again, consistency with your EC levels and your pH is one of the most important things, regardless of what medium you're using or what nutrient solution you're using.
Quick question here, maybe. I have some Tina Wolfers. I have bacterial fungus with cannabis in Jamaica. How can I fix it?
Do they know specifically what type of fungus it is?
What kind of, oh, yeah, what kind of
No,
fungus?
she hasn't specified. So again,
Well, like, the fungus usually comes from your grow environment not being clean, or they just it could be so many different factors. It could be in the drying. It could be in the growing. There's too many factors. You have to know what kind of.
Yeah, if she can, ask her if it's, or I guess she's listening. Is it on the leaf? Is it in the flower? Or is it on the stem? Or is it in the root?
what I'm going to do, well, and this is for all the attendees as well, we're going to put all these questions together and I'm going to circulate them so we can get comprehensive answers to each, and then we're going to put it back on our website at the end, so, or send it out by email. So at least this way, because we have a ton of really good questions there. And you know, I am conscious of time because I like to be mindful of people's time. So two last things I think before we go. One is
look at this.
Huh? Oh, so it comes back to something that was discussed. I can't see. Am I missing out on the fun? That's not good. All right. So a couple of things that were spoken about before. We talked about, you know, Jamaica as a brand on a global scale, right? And so one of the questions is equating, I guess, strains from a locale and then making the comparison. And Darryl, you have to forgive us because it comes from the alcohol industry, but to wines. So, you know, to wines, you know, comparing cannabis strains as a finished product to, you know, wines from different regions, right? And therefore having different sort of profiles and personalities and therefore different markets they cultivate. So with that in mind, how does one go about, because I've also heard this discussed in Jamaica, but protecting the IP or figuring out a way to sort of, you know, properly certify that particular strain, i.e. that particular, you know, type of wine, if that's the analogy we're making, is authentically from that region or that particular jurisdiction.
But
talk a little bit how that's done.
What you're talking about there is terroir that comes out of wine. It's specific notes from the grapes that are grown in that specific region. And with cannabis, as this industry and as everybody gets a little more sophisticated, terroir is everything. So, you know, I think it's going to be just trusting that the company you're buying from is, or, you know, wherever you're getting it, it's coming from a source. But it's not as simple as just genetics. If I grow something that's native to a certain region and it's got that terroir from the region, which is influenced by environmental factors, the sun, the soil, the water, the wind, everything. That's only going to come out that way from that region. So, you know, if you're trying to get something that has that authentic Orange Hill terroir from Jamaica, well, just make sure you're getting it from somebody that's in Orange Hill. For IP, I don't think you can protect that. You just
So
have to make
Cole, let me tell you why that question resonated with me so much. I was at the conference in Vegas and had a conversation with someone fairly, successful in the industry by whatever measure you wanna use, and had the most cynical of comments, which was, but he was very he wasn't even understanding the cynicism within which he was saying. He was saying, we'll get strains from Jamaica and grow them in Canada. Like, we don't need to bother with going out to Jamaica, and we'll still be able to sell them as Jamaican strains. And I'm not trying to set everybody off on this, because that's not the point. We can all get emotionally attached to the conversation. But how do we actually protect it? How do we actually, find ways to have the terpenes or whatever other profile elements are properly protected, if there is a way? Because if there isn't, then we have to find other ways to sort of ring fence that as a product strategy and to command a premium. So again,
I can answer that question.
Hold on, Dre. Hold on. This is actually for you, Scott. I know this could take us another 45 minutes to discuss.
No. This is a quick one.
I would love to hear from everyone, but just really briefly if we can, so we can get one last question.
Check this out. I'll just use the wine. If you're not growing, if you're drinking Napa Valley wine and you know the taste of Napa Valley wine, if you're not growing in Napa Valley, it's not gonna have the Napa Valley taste.
Correct.
Point blank and simple.
From an IP perspective, just quick.
Darryl had said it before. The terpenes. Now, if we go cannabis, the same strain of cannabis in different places, you will have different terpenes. It's totally different. It's gonna be different. So it must be identified in some ways. I'm not sure how you can protect the IP, but based on even Jamaica, there is a unique flavor that comes from Jamaica within it. And let's think about where we are. We're in a place called Time and Patience. And that's in the central part of Jamaica, the north central part of Jamaica. Now, our terpene is different. And if we bring our plants to maybe St. Elizabeth, it's a whole different terpene. It smells different, tastes different, and it is plant. So there has to be a way how to identify and how to protect these kind of flavors. I'm not sure how to compete with wine, based on using the cannabis, we can identify
you'll
that.
have the Napa Valley taste.
This is going in St. Elizabeth, or this is going in Westmoreland,
Well, again, I'm asking you experts for the answer here, but something that just popped in terms of one of the comments was about geographical indicators. Darryl, please, you go ahead, but I just want to throw that in as came in.
Yeah, there's three ways to protect genetics traditionally. One is patent, and patent is very difficult unless you do genetic modification. So let's just throw that one out and say, unless you're doing some crazy stuff, you're not going to get a patent on cannabis. Breeding does allow for breeders' rights, which typically means you're going to get some sort of a royalty on the reproduction and resale of those genetics. And that is a standard way to do that. But again, you're looking at a lot of work, and there's only a few countries that are really accepting registrations of cannabis right now, but it can be done. The third and probably most effective way is trade secret. And so that's keep the stuff to yourself. But when you do that, someone just put it in the brief, DNA tag it exactly. Get a gene sequence of your stuff and say, this is mine, so that you've got defensive intellectual property. If anyone starts to say we have the same stuff as them, go test their stuff, show the terpenes are different, the genetics are same, and then send them a cease and desist, right?
Okay. All right, anyone else on that before I go to my last question? Okay, so I have my last question, and I'd just like each one of you to take a minute or two for your closing comments for today. The last question is going to go to you, Biah, and it says that you mentioned earlier the 7 essential elements for growing. And we had a question come in terms of what are those 7 essential elements?
Well, there are actually 17 essential elements.
17?
Oxygen, carbon, the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, copper, manganese, I guess we can find these, but these are some of the elements that will grow the plants. I maybe can't do the 17 right now, but if we look for the 17 essential elements, maybe we can find them on. But these are some of we have to look deeply into how to understand the elements, and not just to understand the elements, how to use them, when they're used, when they're needed. And in organic growing, to get these elements to work for, say for instance, a zinc, a plant might need zinc or iron. It's unique with pH. You have to see your pH to pick up the zinc or iron naturally from soil, or if you're going to do the additive. So these things, some of these nutrients are picked up by plants at a lower pH, and some of these are picked up at higher pH. So these are some of the dynamics of how the cultivation of cannabis works. So understanding, know the nutrients, understanding the nutrients, understanding how the plant use the nutrients is key.
Perfect, thank you. And then can I ask each one of you, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. We've gotten so many messages, even I'm getting things on WhatsApp about getting in touch with you individually. So by a show of hands, does anyone have an objection to me sharing your contact information for anyone who's requested it? Look at that. You see, when you ask the right question in the right way, you get the perfect response. Thank you.
Or we're all just
Doc, I need your information, Doc. I need to link you, Doc.
All right, perfect.
We need to talk.
I put my email in the chat. It may take me a bit to get back to you. We're launching a number of endeavors up here, but I am happy to help on cultivation anytime. I think it's the foundation of the industry. So
I just need another geek friend, you know? I mean, we all just geeky. Me, Cole, we can always.
All right, we're gonna put you guys in a private chat when we're done, so you guys can, you know, have your bro fest right there. But yeah, if I could ask everyone just to give a quick, you know, wrap up in terms of what how today was, and just some parting words for our guests. I appreciate it.
Love the plant, grow your soil, not the plant.
yeah, just respect and love to everybody. One love, I and I.
Just remember that nature is perfect. Once you understand that, everything will be easy.
Share your
I will say,
I was going to say share
go
your
ahead,
knowledge.
go ahead.
Okay, share your knowledge so we can all be successful at growing this plant. You know, we all have really good qualities. Let's work together to make this happen.
Biah?
Yes, I must say to you guys, it was a very great and wonderful coming together this program. And I must say to everyone who are interested in cultivation of cannabis, be a student of nature. That is everything that you want. Be a student of nature, and you will get the answers for everything that you do. Thank you so much.
And in closing, I just want to say, you know, a really robust thank you to each one of our panelists. You know, Darryl, Biah, Andre, Cole, and Suzie. It's been a real privilege to host you here on this CanEx webinar. Like I said, you know, our perfect scenario would be that we'd be working feverishly to welcome you all to Jamaica a month from today. But given the circumstances, I'm, you know, proud to be a part of something that could help to educate and continue to spread the word from people who are successful in this particular aspect of the industry. It's so very critical that we understand the role that cultivation plays. Whatever tangent we want to get off into the industry, and I always tell people, you know, there's so much opportunity in cannabis that doesn't even have to be plant touching. You know, if you're a wonderful accountant and you decide to go learn how to be a great accountant for cannabis businesses, you will see growth in that field. So it doesn't have to be plant touching, but what you have to do is have an understanding and appreciation for the fact that this comes from this incredible plant. And once we have that and we can dial into the benefits, not just commercial, not just financial, but the way that we can have people living more productive and healthier lives, then I think you really get to see why we need to step back and come at this the right way. So again, I thank all the panelists for being part of this today, giving their time and their expertise. And I thank all the people who joined us today from different parts of the world to be a part of this experience. And we look forward to hosting you again. We have our next one, I think it's September 4th. when we'll talk about investment into the industry and you know, how we can structure our operations from that perspective. But that's it from us at CanEx, and thank you so very much for your time, and I wish you all a very successful grow and a great journey in learning about this wonderful industry. Thank you.